So let's talk about if you're thinking about in like the business post escorting 2 years ish from now, we won't get like some of the students that I have are looking at starting their own businesses like very soon or now. And so the work that we do together can be on that. But given that that's not immediately on the agenda, we won't go near that. But I want you to know that what we're going to cover during this time together, you'll see the things that we do, the tools that I give you can be applied to that business because
Mm.
every business, it doesn't matter what it is the same. We need to be able to attract and sell new customers. We need to be able to retain customers. And we need to be able to read business analytics so that we know what's happening in our business at the different areas of our business and then use that information, the data, to inform our thinking about what to do to grow the business.
Mhm.
And so that's what we're going to be doing together is you've already seen some of that. Like in our first program together, we focus very much on the branding and marketing. How do we attract better, more high quality and consistently new customers?
Mhm.
And that inquiry dashboard that I gave you is very much about giving you a business analytic tool to show you what is happening at the front end of your business. Because when businesses aren't going well, often the first thing we need to focus on is what's called in business lead generation.
Okay. Yep.
When you came to me, right, you weren't getting consistent inquiries, they weren't consistently converting. Often a lot of people aren't consistently like getting high value enough bookings. So they might only be getting 1 hour or the rate they can charge is quite low.
Mm.
And so the issues, like the pain points that they have are at the front end of the business's ability to actually generate leads, which for us is customers, is clients. But leads is just kind of like a term that's used in business for people who could be potential customers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that front part of the business, like the lead generation part, is the first engine that has to be working. Because if you can't attract clients consistently and reliably, if you can't convert them, if you can't get them to spend money with you, well, you just don't have a business, which is like the big issue that a lot of kind of first time business owners run into.
Mhm.
So once we fix that or get that working, there's always ways that we can be improving every part of the business. So we might get to a point where we're consistently attracting clients, but then we decide that we want to be able to increase that value, or we decide that we have more inquiries now, but we're not getting enough conversions, So it's showing that the profile now attracts clients consistently to us, but now they're dropping off too soon, not enough of them are actually booking and spending money. So that's a different problem. So there's different areas of our business and the issues within them can be different at different times. But what's important is that we actually firstly understand that. And then secondly, that we have tools that show us that information, which is based on data. Because it's very difficult when you're in a business to see things clearly. We have our own emotional biases. We have our memories are poor. Like, fuck, I can't even remember what I ate for breakfast a few days ago, let alone think back over the last 30 days in my business as to how many inquiries I got, what happened with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of people firstly don't have the understanding and then they don't have the tools to actually see this information clearly. And the numbers really never lie, which is why I'm so big on that inquiry tracker.
Yeah.
Once that's up and going, then we can focus on other parts of the business. So if you've got the front end of your business working, so we're consistently attracting clients, they're converting well enough and we're getting paid, then we can start looking at what I call like kind of like the middle part of your business. So, how much money does every client spend? What's the average duration that they book for? What's the style of booking that they tend to go for? And again, we can look at what's happening using business tools, which I'm going to share with you, and we can identify problems or identify opportunities, like places that we could be making more money. But we don't know that unless we can see the information clearly in front of us.
Mhm.
Then we can also look at Escorting is very much like a pay per meet kind of business, like a one off transaction style business. But something that's really important in all businesses is recurring income. When your business is based off only one off transactions, the income, the revenue is typically very volatile
Mm.
because you could have no customers one week, more customers another week, which is why I'm so big on the quality of experience in the room and other stuff, like attracting clients that financially have the means to rebook. But we want to get clarity on in our business, how can we increase the certainty of recurring revenue? And there are different strategies again there. One of those strategies is actually touring, because what we can do when we tour is we increase our total client base. And a typical theme in escort businesses is that regular clients might only book like once a month. And so if you've got a broader client base and you're touring around and you've got, let's just like use really simple example. Like let's imagine in Australia, you went to every major city and you had 5 to 10 good regulars there that wanted to see you once a month. Well, if we're touring around consistently, they're now seeing us once a month. We have a base of recurring income as opposed to if we're just placed in one city and those 10 clients are only seeing us once a month. It's a lot less. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, we're not going to go into all these details today. I'm just giving you a bit of a broader view, and everything that I've just touched on, like anywhere I say the word escort, you can change it out for anything. I've worked in the fitness industry, I've worked in the industry. It's all the same. How does a business acquire customers? How do they convert them? How do they keep them coming back? And how do they increase their income month on month so their business is growing? We all have the same issues. So the tools that we're going to go through, we're not going to focus on your like potential business ideas because it's too far away, but we will do all of these things and I'll give you tools for them. So when you get to that point, you'll be able to apply this stuff. You'll still have learnings to go through because every industry has its subtleties and nuances, but you'll understand the psychology of like, well, how does a business run and how do I have to think about it?
Hmm.
Any questions on all of that?
No, no, that I feel like that helps. Just basically, like it's a broad view of how the business side works, and I think that works well because technically, this is well, it is a business now. So this is the business I'm focusing now because it's going to generate the revenue that I need to be able to, invest into the following business, which will be coming in 2 years from now, ideally.
Mhm.
And in order for me to do that, I will need to have bank in the bank. uh,
Totally.
and yeah, so that's why I'm dedicating myself to this full time. So this is the business I'm working on.
Great. Okay. So then I'll drill down a bit more into now what the next 12 weeks might look like for us. And we need to be fluid because plans always look good on paper, but I'll give you like a high level version and then we'll each week do what we need to do.
Hmm.
So anytime we want to grow a business, no matter where it's at, what type of business it is, as I've already covered, we need clear data that actually tells us what is really happening in the business, which isn't influenced by our mood or our memory or anything else. And then when we have that data, what we want to look for are firstly limiting constraints. Do you know like the terminology bottleneck? Have you ever heard of somebody say like, oh, bottleneck in a business?
No.
Okay. Well, think of the shape of a bottle, right? It's got like a really small opening and then it's got like a larger kind of body.
Hmm.
And because it's got a small opening, not very much can get through. It's like slow at that part, but then actually it can fill up quite quickly because there's way more space down the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when people talk about bottlenecks in a business, which is another way for saying a limiting constraint, what they're talking about is whenever you're trying to grow a business, there's always these points in the business areas where things are kind of not working as well as they could be. They're limiting the growth because it's a bottleneck. Like it's a small area where stuff isn't working very well. So for example, a common bottleneck with escorting is that girls can't convert clients to bookings. So they might get lots of inquiries, like hundreds of inquiries, but then when the client is communicating with them, they don't actually get anybody converting. So they don't make any money. And so when we're looking at that business, we can look at it and go, well, you got 100 inquiries this week, but you're not converting any. So let's focus on why you're not converting. Because if we just fixed that part or we even improved it and did nothing else in your business, you're going to start making money. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. So that's what we're going to focus heavily on the next 12 weeks is we need clear data, which is why you got that email about the 3 areas of the business that we want information on. The inquiry tracker shows us what's happening at the front end lead generation.
Mhm.
The timely CRM shows us what's happening with your clients and your bookings and where your business's revenue and income is coming from. It gives us detailed information when you set it up properly about average duration, average lifetime value of a client, the average booking length and style. And then we need information about like your actual finances because at the end of the day, all of this information that we gather and the reason we run a business for most people is to make money. And so we need to understand what's happening on the financial end because sometimes people can be making great money, but they're just like spending money on too much stuff. And so that's actually where we need to focus. So that's the 3 sets of data that we need. And then what we're going to do is basically look at what's happening in the business now. Then we're going to say, where would we like things to be? And this is usually all financially based, right? Like, okay, so I've made 20 grand in the last 2 weeks. Well, I want to make 30 grand in the next 2 weeks. Then we look at the data and we're trying to identify, firstly, limiting constraints. So, where is a point where things aren't working well? Where if we just like improve that one part, the numbers would increase. That's the first things that we always want to look for.
Mhm.
Then the second, which is kind of a derivative from that, because we still use the constraints to identify these things, is we look for opportunities for growth, which usually comes from our learnings either from someone like me who's been doing it for a long time, so kind of knows already stuff that typically works, but also when you have the behavior of being able to look at your business, identify limiting constraints, come up with a plan to fix them, and then fix them, the more repetitively you do that, the better you get at identifying opportunities that might not be as clear based on your experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
So basically, it's just one. If I continue to monitor and put these practices into my daily routine, like
Mhm.
using my CRM and my tracking system that I currently have, and basically those is going to give me the information in order to be able to adjust what I need to work on.
Correct. And for clarity, the first thing we always need to work on is identifying the top limiting constraint in our business. So, what's the one thing that seems to be preventing us from growing the most? And then fixing that. That's always the highest priority. And then, by virtue of doing that over and over again, you will develop the skill to go from just having to see data to tell you problems and then come up with solutions to you'll be able to think a bit more broadly and you'll spot opportunities that might not necessarily be related to the limiting constraint, but you'll see it in the numbers. You'll see it in your business and you'll think, like this is an interesting insight. Maybe I could make this change in my business and it might open an opportunity for growth. Let's see what happens. And so I'll give you an example on that. One really good way to grow income in an escort business is to have multiple profiles. Now, when you're looking at business numbers and like your current business and using the methodology I just described, which is to identify what's the biggest problem in my business right now, stopping me from like making more money and how do I fix it? That's very much focused on like your current business. Because of the exposure I've had to the industry and other businesses, I'm able to say, hey, here's something that's a bit outside the box introducing another profile, which isn't always immediately evident when we just take the limiting constraints approach, which is why I like to teach on it and share it so that you can open your mind. But I also like to stress that when you're starting something for the first time, you don't have those experiential insights to spot opportunities as well. I mean, you probably know this from your work. When you started, you probably had to do stuff very much by the book, but then the longer you were in it, you were able to connect dots faster, come up with new ideas that like maybe people hadn't thought of before. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And so escorting and all business is the same. But if we come at business from this methodology of like keeping data, reading data, identifying limiting constraints, coming up with solutions, that process actually helps us to develop the skill set of identifying opportunities more quickly.
Mhm.
And finally, on all that, the beautiful thing about this is that it is very, very simple.
Yeah.
Because usually, when people come to me for the first time, and myself included in something, when you don't know, you don't know. And it feels like it's so confusing. There's so much going on. There's 50 different possible things you could be doing. You go online and everybody's talking about doing something different. And you just drown in either information overload or procrastination. But using this method, we eliminate all of that noise because all we have to do is figure out, and I give it to you, what data do I need to keep in this business? And it applies to every business. Okay, how do I keep that data? Which I also give to you, but again, applies to every business. All right, how do I read that data? I teach you how to do that.
Mhm.
How do I identify limiting constraints? Okay, I've identified it. Now, how do I come up with a solution? That's literally all we have to do, like a 4-step process every single time, just over and over again. It's so simple. Actually, it's actually one of the biggest issues with entrepreneurial type people like yourself is that they try to overcomplicate it
Yeah.
and fuck
Too
it up
much information.
themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and myself included. But once you kind of let go of the tendency to make things more complex, I don't know if you do this, I'm just speaking more broadly.
No, definitely.
You do?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
Feel like we all do, right?
totally. But once we let go of that and you've got this system, things are just simple. And we just take one step at a time, focus on the current biggest problem, fix that problem, move on to the next one, and the business just snowballs. And that's how people go from not making very much to making 20, 30K a month, then making more, then using that money to start a new business. It's just one little step at a time.
Yeah.
Any questions on any of that?
No, no, I think what you're saying is good, and I think that's why I have invested my time in you again because just it helps me stay accountable, and not just that, it just a lot of this stuff like I didn't really learn in school, you know what I mean? And I kind of just don't really want to go to uni or TAFE and go learn again, but without someone that really knows to invest in escorting because I've been escorting now for like 5 years and I was mentored by another girl, but it was more just like, escort, make money or like, booking to booking. And then she still taught me a few things. So I won't lie and say that she didn't teach me much. But on the business side of things, when I started learning with you, I think it's helped me a lot as well. And also refreshed my memory of like things that I've kind of learned in the past as well, and to implement them again into what I'm doing now, but more on the escort side of things, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And that's really helpful.
Good. I'm really glad to hear it. And you're
Hmm.
an action taker. Like that's honestly, this stuff that I'm going to teach you, you will have heard some of it before. The problem is that people don't implement because they get overwhelmed by all the other potential things. And it's not rocket science. Like once I lay it out, it becomes a bit like, oh, yeah, of course I should be doing that. It isn't some complex matrix that we need to go to uni, in my personal opinion, to
Yeah.
learn about. It's just actually not that complicated. It's simple. And the best thing that you can do is simplify it and then just do it every single day.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also like a really important thing, me especially, I feel like when I do something, whether it's a business or anything, it's so much helpful for me when I have it's not just about accountability, but it's talking to someone that gets you, because I could be working with 3 other girls here, and I feel like obviously you do so much better, but it's hard to just coordinate time with working with somebody all the time. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So it's good to work with someone versus just yourself all the time, because it's otherwise you're just talking to yourself, and that's not really good, especially for me.
Like a crazy person.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So do the next 12 weeks feel clear enough as to what we're going to do and the direction we're going in?
Mhm.
Beautiful. All right. So the inquiry tracker is up and running. Timely and the financial tracker, where are you at with getting that in place?
Timely will be, I guess, on this week's agenda. I mean, week. Yeah.
Great. Okay. What we need to add to Timely, as well as all of the metrics that I outline in those videos, is
Mhm.
we're going to track your utilization.
Okay.
And what utilization is available hours versus worked hours.
Okay.
In Timely, they have the ability to track the hours that you're available for customers to make appointments. And then, of course, when you input appointments in there, that is you inputting time that you've worked. And we want to keep those figures because it's a really useful data point in our business to know that, okay, I was available for bookings 50 hours this week, but I only got 30 hours worth of bookings. So therefore, or let's say 25, so that I can do maths easily. I was only utilized 50% of the time. 50% of my time was basically idle and could have been spent working, but obviously wasn't. And so that's another important point that we can gain insights from. Like, for example, we just did with this with and was tracking those figures, found out that information. And so now we have implemented a second profile to be able to utilize that time. I mean, it's not the only thing that we could have done. There's different things that you can do at any point in time, but that's just an example. If she hadn't kept those numbers, we may not have known that that is a possibility for us.
Mhm.
And I'll show you what this is going to look like.
Mhm.
Uno momento.
Yeah. So timely, I'll do that this week. And also, the other thing, you reckon I just should focus on that, so I don't overwhelm myself. Like that was on module 9.
Correct.
And then the other thing that I need to set up too, I've got myself a Android phone and set up the order reply.
Yes.
Okay, I'll do that. Timely order reply.
Yep. If you focus on those two this week,
Hmm.
that would be great.
Amazing.
And I'm just going to show you this really quickly. Don't lose your head about it because I'll take
Hmm.
you through this step by step. We have this inquiry tracker dashboard, which shows us what's happening with your inquiries, the front end, the lead generation part of your business. So, how many customers contact us, when they contact us, what happens, what's the initial money that we make. That's what this is tracking.
Hmm.
Timely is an application that you set up like a calendar, basically. However, then we're going to extract the information from that to give us another dashboard. This is a bookings dashboard. And this is going to show us information about the middle part of your business, the booking part of your business, new
Okay.
clients versus repeat clients, which style of booking is most popular, which duration of booking. And then we're going to use that to find out further insights and do things like track spend per client or lifetime value of client. So you can see with when we started together, the
Hmm.
average money that a client spent was $630. It's now double that.
Okay.
Likewise, the amount that the value per booking was this much 660, it's now over double that 1300. We wouldn't have known that if we didn't have timely set up and then we're utilizing the data in this way. And I do like we'll walk through all of this, so don't worry about this for now, but I just want to show you timely can seem like a bit of a hassle, but the value, like literally we're looking at an entire business here from this
Hmm.
one spreadsheet because of those systems that we have in place, so it's worth the time.
Okay.
And then lastly, the financial tracker. Might not be something you do this week, but when you're ready, definitely turn your mind to that. Because if we're improving the business and you're consistently earning more, but your like net kind of wealth position, so to speak, is going down, then the problem is usually in people's spending habits, to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
But we might find that there's a part of the business that too much money is being spent. And can we make that spend more efficient? Or can we decrease it somehow? We don't know unless we're keeping the numbers. It doesn't happen typically in an escort business because our escort business is essentially a solo operator business where the costs are very low. But maybe, for example, at some point, you've got 10 to 15 different profiles running, not profiles, but like advertising platforms. And so your advertising cost is crazy. And we can see that in your financials. We might run a test of removing a few platforms. And because we've got our inquiry tracker, which tracks where inquiries come from, we'll be able to
Mhm.
decrease the spend in advertising and then see, does it have a correlating effect on your income? I mean, that's not a test, to be honest, I do very often with escorting, because to be honest, if people are overspending, it's usually in their personal lives. But that's just to give you an example of why it's important.
Okay. Yeah, I get that.
All right. So if that's all clear, any further questions on it?
No, that's good.